Hopefully we will soon have a live channel. And now we do. So that means it's time for me to say, hello everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons.
I am Christiana Ellis. I am the Dungeon Master. Our players tonight, Jenny Meltzer as Zaleen,
Woo.
Paul Fisher as Zinhorn,
Good evening.
Starla Hutchton as Carolina.
Hello, friends.
I should say Carolina et al.
Etc.
Yes.
And associates.
And associates, that's good. Mark Kilfoyle as Nedry.
I wonder if I need a separate book for travel adventure.
And Chooch Schubert as Sequential.
Hello, hello. Yeah, make sure it's waterproof.
Oh, good note.
So, we return after a week off because I was out of town having IRL adventures. But let's recap what happened when last we saw our heroes. You had a meeting with the security administrator of the train station, and it was going well until it didn't anymore. And you indirectly, were associated with the attack on this building, which resulted in a major metropolitan office building being decomposed by interdimensional fungus. Like you guys didn't do it. It wasn't your fault, but you're certainly in the mix in such a way that you guys seemed to think that maybe might be good to lay low for a little while. And you had errands to run out of town anyway. So we left off with the discussion being that you might inquire about booking passage on an airship to Emersham. So you could follow up your leads there, as well as not be present to be arrested by perhaps overexcited government officials. Did I miss anything important?
Yeah. You didn't tell him what we didn't do, which was go to the library.
That's true.
It's true.
It's true.
That was the most important thing that we didn't do.
Yeah. You didn't know that your fate rested on a knife's edge when I asked you if you were going to go to the library first or the government building first.
Yeah.
Library first, always.
That's the new rule.
Now you know. Well, we'll have to see whether that's a rule that you can stick to or not as we continue our adventures. But in the meantime, I think we can imagine that in between on-camera scenes, you have all done some discussion about what sorts of things you're going to bring with you on this trip versus leave behind in the castle. We don't need to go into the minutia of that, but there are certainly a couple of notable items that it would be important to know whether you have or are leaving behind. I would gather that most of the important artifacts that you have are being brought with you in the bag of Isild's bag of holding. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's
Most
fair.
things.
That seems like what we would do.
I don't think we would want to bring the circlet in the bag, but I do recommend we get another box for that. And I can lock it up pretty well.
Well, so that's a valid question then. If you don't want to have it in the bag, where would you have it?
Yeah, since it was in the bag in one of the anti-magic fields, right?
No.
Circlet? No.
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 The circlet is in
Oh,
the...
we had talked about that.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
think
so
that's a good idea to
Wow,
have Sharkman and Circlet in the same place.
Right.
well, I don't disagree, but it does leave open the question of if not there, then where?
I can
thought
put it in
your
my
bear-
backpack.
Well, I would suggest we put it in a strong box of some kind, and I can magically lock it, so it should be stronger.
Uh, how about this? I will make a brief expediency offer that, given that sequential stayed behind rather than going to this office building with the rest of you last time, we could perhaps decide that he was building such a box.
Sounds
Is
good.
that something that you would feel appropriate and in character for sequential?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. So my guess is that you would be wanting to build it from lead, given that that
Mhm.
is the sort of metal that would protect it from scrying and other divination magics.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
certainly that is the material that will have that effect with the smallest amount of mass, as opposed to, for example, needing a cubic, 3 cubic.
Concrete.
Yeah, exactly. So we can imagine then that you have constructed a special lead box essentially just for the circlet, or do you think you would have built it big enough to put some other stuff in there too? I mean, the circlet, obviously, you could have things in the middle, I guess.
Yeah, it's because it's not that big. So yeah. I mean, if we're taking the time, um, I would think I'd make it a little bigger. Maybe like kind of like a filing cabinet, I guess. I guess maybe like 3 feet high and then like 2 by 2,
Bearing in mind that I think
a
the
rectangle.
intent is probably that this box is something you carry with you. Or is
Yeah.
Oh, something we
Like
carry
a
with us. Well,
Wait, why
backpack
are we
kind of
taking it
thing.
with us?
Then
I
it's
would
gotta
think it
fit
was
into a bag.
safer in the
Or-
castle.
If you're leaving it in the castle, that's why I introduced the question, was because
Yeah.
you certainly
I-
are allowed to leave these things behind, and I just wanted to know which things would you bring with you and which would you leave
yeah.
behind.
I guess I
I don't-
pictured kind of like a big gun vault that would stay in the castle, since the castle is already has its own protections.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't
Being
really
sentient
want to
and
leave
all.
it here, though. I don't feel it would be safe. It's nothing against Sunya or any of the others, Lord Rolenth certainly, but anything that would drag more attention to them would be bad. And if it's here, I would feel worried about it all the time.
Why would anybody think it was here, though? Like the only person that was really interested in it knows you had it, and so would be more likely to follow you than anything else.
I suppose, but it just feels. I'd be afraid to have it not around us. We can't protect it if we're not around it either.
I don't
get
agree
that.
with Nedry, but I also don't think that Nedry should be in charge of it. No offense,
Probably
Nedry.
wisest.
See, personally, I don't feel safe around it. Like, it's way more concerning that it is in my presence at all.
My thought
not
was Lord
scared of
Rolenth. My thought was Lord Rolenth's been in this business a lot longer than we are, so I thought he'd probably be pretty good at tracking and protecting such things.
Well, to be certain, if you intend to leave it, he will do his best to ensure that it is kept secret and safe.
And I'm sure that Sorashana has her own devices for keeping things secure.
Oh, I don't doubt that. I'd like to have a conversation about that with her at some point, but it's probably better that I don't yet. We can leave it here. I just want to make sure it's magically locked up as well as physically locked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I can
I
help-
like the
I
idea
can
of
help
you
with that.
using. Yeah, I think I like the idea of you using an arcane lock.
Sure. So
For sure.
I agree with that.
Okay, so let's perhaps go back to the concept then that it's a little bit like a gun locker or a filing cabinet, that sort of size, and that it has been locked both physically and with an arcane lock. Does it have a key?
How about? Well, yeah. Why not? something you have,
I mean,
something you
and
know.
that could even be something that, yeah, you bring the key with you, because I think the intention
Mhm.
would certainly be that Lord Relenth wouldn't open it while you're gone.
Yeah.
And then we can be sure that nobody would use it because we have the key and we are not there. So
All right. So,
And I can get some gold dust from either you, Sequential, or Sarashana can easily make gold dust, I'm sure. Smashing gold, I guess.
gold dust can certainly be had. All right.
We
So,
had the mirror of life trapping in the lab.
yeah. So
which I would
what else
imagine
is
we're not
going in?
taking.
Right. What else is going in the locker? You all,
And the
versus
what
the
about
doom
the
of
deck of
nightmares.
cards?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a feeling on that one way or the other?
I think the deck of cards should stay with Sorashana, and that she should begin a task of seeing if she can work out a way to extract just one person out of the cards.
Yeah, 'cause she was working on that before. She might be able to
She had a
perfect it.
theory, yeah.
She
But
had
we
a
never
theory, but
really
she never
said to
started
go
working.
through.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think she's really not so far made any real progress on that. It's an ancient, powerful artifact that seems to derive a lot of its magical power from twisting fate in such a way that further manipulation might render it even more unstable.
Mm.
So could potentially be done, but right now she has not found a way to do it without potentially it being catastrophic levels of out of control.
And I'm not sure if that would be good for her to try that when we're not around. It was a little bit dangerous with the strange color, for example.
Well, she seems like she did learn somewhat of a lesson from that, and she is eager to investigate it, but I think she confesses this thing, the deck of cards scares her.
I can start to study it. I don't have the same type of skills as Sarashana does, but I know quite a bit about magic.
So are we taking them or leaving them here?
If we take them, we're going to have to carry them. I don't think it would be safe putting them in the bag.
So
Put them in my backpack.
I mean, that can work. Actually, I might be able to lock them as well, just to prevent accidental use.
The nature of the magic item is such that it requires attunement to use. So, I think correct me if I'm wrong on the device, but I am certain that it requires attunement. So no one's going to use it accidentally unless, and I think even when you're attuned to it, you need, like, if you dropped it and a card fell out, that would not have the magical effect. It's a little bit like saying if you accidentally gave someone a tarot reading, like it wouldn't happen.
You accidentally get. Oh, sorry to bump into you. Oh
Oh
my!
my.
Yeah.
I might be able to lock your bag. Actually, I'll give you a
Okay.
password so you could open it, but it would make sure that no one accidentally bumps into you and steals everything you own.
Okay.
All right. So the deck of cards Zaleen will carry, but her bag has got an arcane lock on it. Is that
That's the attempt, yeah.
okay? Sure.
And what
Cool.
password would you like, Zaleen?
You pick one.
I'll have to think about that.
All right. Well, you don't have to decide
All
right
right.
now. We can imagine later that you have decided on one, and we can get into the details later if it comes up. But the circlet and the mirror of life trapping are staying behind in the cabinet. What about
Yeah, yeah.
the remains that you found in the bag, the skeleton?
Um,
Hmm.
it's in the
Zinhorn, can you take that to the temple?
Yeah, I could take it to the temple and have the
Or
body put to
maybe,
rest.
I
yeah,
wonder
have it
if that
sent.
would raise some questions, though. I mean, how many
Well-
times are you going to show up with a dead body and they say, "Oh, that's fine"?
I'm a cleric. I put dead bodies in the ground and consecrate the ground. No, sorry.
does
You know,
that happen a
for
lot?
Shama and all that.
And we're
People die all
adventurers.
the
That's what we
time.
do.
Yes, we're adventurers. People
But this
die all the
body
time,
is,
and sometimes we help them.
Does
this
it?
body's a
Do we
little
need
sensitive.
anything else from that body?
I mean, the only reason you had hung on to them so far was because you were concerned that once the remains are identified, you might have to answer questions about how you came to be in possession of them. But if you're not in town, then those questions at least are not an immediate concern.
Yeah, we can just leave it.
Do
I
they
mean-
take anonymous donations of bodies?
Well, I mean, here's
You
my
just dump
thought.
it in the river.
University.
I mean,
It's
Here's
a
my
skeleton.
Who knows what's going to happen and what we're going to find out there? What if we find something that connects to this person somehow? Because we do think that it is kind of connected in some way
So
to
then
what we're
let's-
researching. So if we hold on to it, by the time we come back, Zinhorn could do Speak with Dead again.
So that seems reasonable. Let's just leave the body here.
Yeah.
okay. All right. So I would assume the rest of your gear, your equipment, and everything you're bringing with you.
Would it be possible? I was going
Yeah.
to ask. I would assume sometime over the last whenever that I would have maybe had a chance to get that extra set of armor that I keep intending to get for
Oh
Clank.
well, they
We
went
bought
to-
a set.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
they went.
Oh, you
to-
did buy a set?
Yeah, when
Mhm.
they went to Sticky Zicky's Adventuring
Okay.
Emporium, they bought a Glink-sized set of studded leather armor.
Studded
Okay.
leather.
Perfect.
I
It
put
has
it
a
in
little
our
logo in the, in
spreadsheet
the
under
corner, but you don't
Carolina.
have to say anything. At least
Yeah, but I like that. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. I was hoping to go back there and get another one of those bats.
Yeah.
That came in handy, and we did not think it would.
So, in the meantime, while you've been making these decisions and arrangements and packing and so on, Yobert has been using the sending stone to try to make some arrangements, and he tells you all, I have made contact with a colorful individual to whom I am acquainted named Sweet Tony, who works up on the 5th tier, and he is able to put you in touch with some airships who would be willing to discreetly allow you to book passage. I believe he has a couple of options available, but he will need to brief you on those. I think it would be better to, reduce the number of people who know on which ship you are. Once you're safely away from the city, you can tell me if you believe it's necessary for me to know.
Yeah. The more you don't know, the safer
Possible
you are.
deniability.
It's a wonderful thing.
is it going to be expensive?
You will not need to provide a fee. It's arranged for. There's a. In some circles, it may surprise you to learn that there's an economy of favors, if you understand my meaning.
The university operates that way too. I think.
A lot of deals are done backstage for like when I do performances and stuff. Like you would be surprised.
Probably.
Yeah. I think we're all familiar with an economy of favors. There's much the same in the church.
So
I
in
know,
any
but-
case, when you are ready, you can find Sweet Tony at on the 5th tier, near the entrance to the spire. He will be expecting you, and he can direct you to whichever airships he was able to arrange.
Can we get some running around cash?
Yeah, well, let's say, sure, why not? Let's say you are all given 200 platinum. Well, no, let's say probably not all platinum. Let's say 500 gold and 1,500 gold worth of platinum, which is 150 platinum.
Wow, I've never had
You-
this much money before.
Each of us?
No, not each.
Oh,
Oh, I swear.
As a group.
I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
dang.
We're like, that's quite generous.
So we each get basically we would each get 100 gold and 25 platinum for 20, 25,
Okay.
Well, so 130 platinum.
30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
all right.
So I think that pretty much makes those arrangements. Are you saying, like, are you just heading out right away, or were you going to make any other errands on before you leave?
I think the sooner the better. I didn't really have anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
I'm gonna write a note to have Lord Relength deliver to my church, just to let them know that I'm leaving town, and I expect to be back within 2 moons.
All right. He agrees to do that for you. I think Yobert and Brennan have both kind of been, Brennan's been like assisting with the, like getting it like all of the gear and, the actual like handing over of physical items and that sort of thing. Sorashana, I think, has been kind of quiet in the workshop, as you're preparing to leave.
Is there a library in the house? Like, does he have a book collection in the house?
Well, so the workshop floor has many books in it. It is probably something that would have been a library if they didn't have someone who wanted to use it as a workshop.
Okay. I don't have a lot of stuff to pack because I don't really have anything. So, as soon as I finish packing, I will actually go and ask Lord Relent if he has any books on the Mistress of the Dark.
I think if he did, you probably would have arranged. You would have found those already. Just given
Okay.
that you've had some interest in it for a while. So,
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
Okay.
But as you are all, getting ready to go, Sorashana, it's kind of, you're kind of gathering in the, towards the exit, I guess. And Sorashana kind of just wishes you luck. She seems kind of bummed that you're leaving, to the extent that you can tell. She does have her mask down, but she's kind of looking at her feet, but has definitely come down to say goodbye. And Sunia as well. I do wish you all luck on your journey. I hope that you're able to find out the answers you're looking for. And Yobert says, and in the meantime, I will do my best to ensure that your names are cleared of any wrongdoing, given what happened in the administration. But I do believe that there are additional mysteries that I will see if I can clear up.
If you find out anything, please let us know as soon as you can. There's too many pieces missing in this puzzle, and I can't put it all together yet.
Agreed.
We'll
So,
certainly return as quickly as we can. You've all made it a very comfortable place to be.
he kind of chuckles and says, I'm glad to hear it. I am a little dismayed that we are our little experiment has been simultaneously more and less successful than I had imagined so far.
One thing that I would do before we left, I would remind Sorshana that Lord Relenth does have the sending stone that I keep. So if there's ever anything you need, or if you just need to talk to somebody, you can always reach out. We'll be back soon.
She briefly looks up and then sort of gives you a little nod, but doesn't say anything.
Also, watch for paper. I might send you a letter from time to time. It'll come through the window, probably.
Brennan says, I'll keep an eye out for that. All right. So,
Alright.
everyone is ready. Do you disembark the Sunya di Unturbelu, the castle, and head up for Tier 5? Which is not the highest tier in Skyport Tower, but it is certainly considerably higher up off the ground than Tier 3, where the castle is. So, you could just go up the stairs again through the pillar, or you could arrange for an elevator. Either way, which do you think you would do?
Stairs are a lot more daunting without my tall friend.
More chances to be seen, also.
Hmm.
Yeah. Also, more chances to be trapped.
Hmm.
So I would say take the elevator. It's faster and less people looking at you.
With them being so suspicious, Nedry's head suddenly is like on a swivel, just looking at everybody, kind of somewhat nervous all of a sudden.
Yeah. So, just for fun, go ahead and make a deception check.
Perception check, you said?
Deception.
Oh, deception. Okay.
Yeah.
Who, all of us, or just
No,
Nedry?
just Nedry.
He's the one who's looking weird.
That's kind of
Sure.
what I'm getting at is how much are you attracting attention to yourself based
Right.
on how twitchy and paranoid you look?
That's a 10.
That's a 10. That's not too bad. Like, I think people might look and say, gosh, what's that gnome so worried about? But
I have a feeling like if they look at him because he's acting weird, he'll start looking back at them, kind of trying to figure out if they're following him or something. So he's like walking along, his head is still turning as he walks by.
all right. So you all make your way up to Tier 5 by means of the elevators, and once you head towards the entrance you were told to wait, there is a pretty grimy looking, like, dock worker type. He's got grease stained coveralls and long hair kind of tied up into sort of like a messy ponytail bun, and he is clearly like he's a half elf, but he's a half elf that's showing his age. In human years would be in the neighborhood of like 65 or something like that. But he's got the pointed ears, and he approaches all of you, and he's cleaning off his hands with a rag, and just says, well, so I've been told to expect you, and I'm hearing that you're looking to see the sights, coastal destination perhaps.
Are you fat, Tony?
Sweet Tony.
Tony.
His jaw drops and says, well, I do like to eat, but I am generally known for my disposition rather than my figure. I am Sweet Tony.
I just thought because you were so skinny that it was, like a joke. But I get that's sweet, Tony. Sorry.
That's all right.
I look at him with a lot of scrutiny. Is he
Okay.
lying?
You want to make an insight check?
Sure. Because
Okay.
these are terrible.
Is he gonna sell us out?
Oh, that's a 19, weirdly enough.
19. This guy is a total slime ball, but he's not lying. he does seem to be intending to actually make this deal, but he is also the sort of person who probably makes illegal deals all the time. This is not a. It is the distinction of someone who can be counted on to be untrustworthy in most circumstances, but seems at this point to believe it is in his best interests to carry out this deal. He doesn't get what he wants unless he fulfills his end of the bargain.
Okay, he's Nedry's probably still like slinking back a little bit. He's got his eyes narrowed and he's watching him suspiciously, but nods in a
Yeah.
pleasant way.
Yes, this is a disreputable individual who does seem to genuinely intend to help you at the moment. So he says, if you'd all just follow me over here, and it gets so noisy here on the 5th tier. I find that when I want to have a chat with my friends, it's best to do so in a little alcove where we can have some measure of privacy.
Lead the way, sweet.
And he just basically, leads you along down some alleyways made by, just the various structures here on the tier, and finds a relatively quiet corner that is almost like there's a moment where you're passing into this little area where the sound from outside seems to kind of suddenly diminish, like in a way that you suspect there might be a magical influence as opposed to just sound being blocked by, walls or buildings. And then as he gets you in there, he just says, so, I don't need to know why you're going to Emisham. I just know that I'm to get you there. So, there are 3 different airships that are potentially able to do this job for you, but I wanted to make sure, because Lord Relent is a good friend of mine, I want to make sure that his people are satisfied. So I thought I'd give you a range of options. What would you say is your priority as far as understanding that discreet passage on airships leaving soon is sort of a beggars and choosers situation? Beggars, not choosers, that is.
I would think speed over comfort.
Well, so probably the ship that's going to get you there the soonest is the Breath of Haraz. Now, this is a military surplus cargo ship run by a dwarf named Captain Ludok Cloudkiller. Now, what I will tell you is, even though he's got the fastest ship and he's heading straight for Emisham, he's a little bit of a twitchy character, not the friendliest type. Certainly willing to do the job, but you're going to need to hide in a crate for a while, both leaving here and arriving in Emisham. But he can get you there in about a day and a half.
How big is the crate?
Well, it's, big enough. But, you're hiding in a crate, so, not that big.
Wait, are we all
Works
hiding
for
in the
me.
same crate or in different crates?
Well, I didn't get into that level of detail with him, I'll be honest.
I'm going to stretch my wings out and say, I hope it's a big crate or,
Well,
multiple crates.
you're probably not going to be able to stretch your wings out in it, is my guess.
So what else have we
hey,
got?
look, I'm just saying, you were the one that just said speed over comfort, okay? So that was just
Yeah.
the first option. Let me get, I
Okay.
got
Sure.
2 more. So we've also got the Justabite, which is it's a produce. They do exotic produce, and it's a pair of halflings, like a mother and daughter, I think, that run that one. And so they're headed straight to Emisham as well, but their ship is a little slower than the Breath of Haraz, and that's going to take you 3 days to get there. But I think probably they're going to be a little more accommodating. Like, they're very fussy about their cargo, but they're halflings. They're good cooks, I think. So, I don't know, probably you're going to be more comfortable on that ship. I also think, they're a little more friendly if you're looking for conversation on the way.
Not so much looking for conversation, but
You're
Uh,
not.
I'm thinking being with people who are nicer people rather than twitchy people probably going to be better for us. And I really don't like the idea of being in a crate.
Well, I can't say that I blame you there. I'm just presenting the options, like I said. So a third
Appreciate
option,
that.
and I was led to understand that some of you are bookish types. Well, just so happens that we have an inn with a Githzerai, ex-monk named Nirlya. It's kind of a hard to say name. You're just going to have to ask him. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm getting it right. But he runs an exotic book shop out of an airship.
What? Yes, that one.
Yes.
Okay, well, so
Well, hold on.
what
If it takes us longer, it just means there's more time to read.
downside of that one is he does have to stop in Gorn first, which is not exactly on the way to Emerson.
But that's one of the big historic sites of the story. Oh, I wonder
Sure,
if there would be time to do any
yeah.
sightseeing.
No, that's great. Lots of stuff happened in Gorn, that's for sure. So that ship is relatively fast. It's going to be about a day getting to Gorn. He's going to be staying a day there, and then it's going to be another 2 days to get to Emersham. So that's actually the longest total travel time to get you to your destination.
We're not-
Nirlya is kind of an odd fellow, but I don't know. I'm not usually the sort of person who's going to spend a lot of time with someone who runs an exotic bookshop out of a airship. So,
Why
that might
wouldn't
just be
you?
me. Well, you know what? I have other hobbies.
That's fair. I have another.
I vote for the
Several.
produce ship.
I vote for the book ship.
Well, certainly you all are able to go and examine each of these ships if you like. When you've chosen one, you don't need to come back to me. All you need to do is speak to the captain and tell him, Sweet Tony says this is the thing.
All right, we got the thing. Thank you very much, Sweet Tony.
Well, I hope that whichever you choose works out for you. I get what I need either way, so it's been nice doing business with you.
Sorry, I said you were fat.
Well, you know what? It's okay. You didn't really. It's complicated. I have a generally positive body image, honestly. I certainly am not the conventional pinnacle of what society considers beauty, but I feel good in my own skin.
Well, you should. You're very handsome.
Well, thanks.
Why would you feel good in someone else's skin? That seems kind of wrong.
I
And
agree.
creepy.
I
And
agree.
Carolina just kind of.
I don't go into that sort of thing myself.
Oh, I mean, no, that would be fine, I guess.
Would it?
Yeah.
It would depend on the
Sorry.
Had
circumstances.
something stuck in my throat.
All
sorry.
right. Well, you know what? I've learned in my line of business to not be too judgy about these things. So if that's what does it for you, then good for you. I wish you all luck. And then he
Thank
kind
you
of
very much. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you.
just sidles on out the way he came, leaving you behind.
Did he give us the name of the Githzerai ship?
Oh, it's just Nirlya's bookshop. Or no, excuse me, bookship. Nirlya's bookship.
The book ship.
The bookship.
So my first inclination was the produce ship, but I have a feeling that we've got two people here that are super excited about these books. So
And you want to go
strong
to
feeling about it
Gorn.
either way.
Well, this is why I was laughing about your discussion earlier on about the new rule, always go to the library first. And I'm like, well, we'll see if we can put that
Here's
to the
the
test right
test,
away.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fine with sitting in a crate, but the book ship is much more logical.
Nobody
I mean-
puts sequential in a crate.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't
agree.
really have a specific timetable, so as
Yeah,
far
we're
as
not
we know,
like
we
in a
can afford
hurry.
the time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. If we don't take a direct route, we'll be harder to follow. Yeah. So going to Gorn will also be good.
Zigzag,
Yeah, but if
zigzag.
they
yeah.
somehow figure out where we're going they'll be able to get there before us.
That would happen no matter where we were going.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter which ship we were taking. If they figure out where we're going, they're going to get there before us anyway.
On this
If-
subject, will mention that you do know that technically the lightning rail is faster. If you get a direct
Okay.
train from Pashan to Emersham, that would be faster.
Then I'm gonna have to go with taking the slow boat because they'll get there and we won't have been there, and maybe they'll lose interest. Of course,
I mean,
the
we
flip
can-
side of that is that they'll have lots of time to set a trap for us. But you guys seem to want to go on the book ship, so I'm okay with that.
I mean, we can look at the other two ships.
Let's face it,
I've
we're not
not really-
looking at the other two ships.
Well, I've never really seen their ships up close. I've seen them overhead. I came to.
I think
Bashan
at
on the
this
lightning
point it's
rail.
kind of a moot point. I think we're just
3 out
we're
of
gonna
5
take
of us
the
want
book
the
ship.
book
Come on.
ship, so let's go. Let's
I mean,
not
I'm not going to
dawdle.
object to that at all.
All right, then we're on our way.
All right. So are you heading straight for that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, not just books, but exotic books.
Okay, well, give me just a moment. You guys can chat about that plan for a moment while I set some stuff up.
Who knows what's exotic to a Githzerai, though? It could be like a cardboard pop-up book.
Hey, those
Like
can be
the book
really
we
exotic.
already had. Did
Yeah.
we bring the book with us?
That we would bring, yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of assumed that you would. Is
Okay.
that in the bag, or is it you have not put it in the bag?
Could be in
I
my
think that was
backpack. We're
specifically-
definitely not putting
Yeah, I think
that
that
in
was
the bag.
specifically not put in the bag. So,
I am
yeah.
just
yeah.
kind of, if I may, a brief aside on DM
Nedry.
feelings. I am delighted by the creation of a scenario where a magic item that has been specifically created for the safe storage of dangerous magical items is exactly where you can't put them.
Yeah.
Out of pure paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just unleash that guy out the airship. Just like out the airlock.
Yeah, just
let
dump
him
them out
out.
of the bag over the side.
Yo,
That's amazing, actually. That would be fascinating.
He's lived this long. He's probably got enough tricks to survive that.
Yeah.
it would still be funny.
I'd rather transfer him to the mirror if we have a chance later on.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Sequential, you're good at building things. I have a small request at some point. I was hoping to
Sure.
buy one, but I realized I probably couldn't actually put it in the mouth of the bag anyway. But if you could build me a bookshelf that we can take apart and put inside the bag, I'd like to be able to store books in there. And other things, maybe. In a little more
Certainly.
organized way. If I just put them in there, I mean, they're in there, but sort of flying around with everything else, and it feels kind of weird.
Yeah, no problem.
It doesn't have to be fancy, just sturdy and something we can assemble inside the bag.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a vendor down on the 3rd tier called IKEA that provides bookshelves like that.
The flat pack.
Yes. Although the names are all things like,
Roland Dwarvish.
Thronduil. you get the Thronduil or the Galadriel bookshelf. So as you are kind of looking around at the various airships on this tier, you do eventually spot one with in rather simple letters painted on the side is Nirlyaz, which is spelled Nirlla. Nirlyaz bookship. It is a relatively small airship. It has 2 big sort of buoyancy like balloons, which there are a variety of designs of airship. That's just how this one works. It looks to be propeller driven as opposed to like arcane flame or anything like that. But it does appear to have on various tables and stacks kind of in the center of the main deck, a number of like books and scrolls and such on them. And you see up on the deck, you see both a Githzerai, who, for anyone who doesn't know what Githzerai look like, they are tall and slender, greenish yellow skin, kind of elongated heads compared to most humanoid races, pointed ears, and he seems to be he moves like he's pretty old. Like he kind of moves a little slow and haltingly. But he's in some fancy robes. There is also what you would guess is a relatively young, like early adulthood, blue-skinned dragon or blue-scaled dragonborn, who also seems to be working on the ship, as opposed to like perusing the stock or whatever. So that's who you see up on the deck from the dock.
I think there's an appreciative whistle, and Nedry's already gone, walking straight for the table of books. Nothing else makes any attention right now.
Well,
So
yeah.
as you come aboard, the blue skin dragonborn just says, "Welcome, welcome. We are on our way out of town very soon, so time is limited. But in the meantime, feel free to browse. If you have any questions, you can just ask me."
Is this your whole collection? Do you have any books on magic? How about some books on ancient history? I have a few topics I'd like to run by you if you have some inventory.
And I kind of shove in him. I'm like, what about books about Mistress of the Dark? Do you have anything like that?
Oh, that'd be nice too.
No, yes. We can discuss if there's time. Yes. Are you actually, as I mentioned, we are preparing to leave soon.
Oh,
Oh, that's
sweet
okay.
Tony
We're coming
said.
with you.
Sweet Tony said this is the stuff.
The Dragonborn.
This is the thing.
Yeah, so the
So-
Dragonborn that you're talking to just frowns at you like, what? But then the Githzerai approaches and just says, "Greetings to you. I heard that you bring news from Sweet Tony."
Yeah, he said this is the thing.
Well then, I would ask that you step aboard, make yourselves comfortable. We are preparing for departure.
Are we allowed to look at the books and touch them?
I would
Nedry
ask.
already is.
He-
At least ones are out.
Yeah, the Dragonborn is kind of hovering anxiously over you, trying to make sure you're not disrupting the organization too much. The Githzerai says, "I am Nilya. I am the proprietor of the book ship. We are preparing to secure the stock for departure, but many of the books could be made available for your perusal once we are underway."
That's
Sounds
awesome.
wonderful. Is there anywhere where you would like us to sit and wait out of the way while you make your preparations?
So he gestures towards the rear of the ship, and there's a covered area there. It's not entirely enclosed, but it's kind of like there's sort of an awning over it, and there's a table and chairs in there, as well as a door which looks like it would go down to a lower deck. And he just says, "Please take a seat."
Certainly. And I will hook these two little puppies by the arm and like bring them with me.
But
Do
I
you need
haven't
any
read all the titles
help?
yet.
Wait, do you need help with anything? Is there anything we can help with for departure?
One moment, and because it was clear that the Dragonborn is looking confused at the Githzerai, and so Nirlia beckons him over for a moment, away from the rest of you, and they have a whispered conversation that the Dragonborn doesn't seem to enjoy. But they come back over together, and Nirlia says, "This is my protege. His name is Garouge. It is his duty to secure the books, and I would ask that you not interfere.
Okay.
And Garush
Fair
kind
enough.
of, he nods politely, but a little curtly. But so I can, if you like, show you guys a map of this particular airship.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you are in Roll20, I will move your view over to this particular airship, and I will choose the screen.
Ooh,
Yeah, so
that's pretty.
yes. So right now, obviously, the map is showing you kind of at Sky. Currently, you are still at the Skyport dock, but Garouge, the Dragonborn, does begin busying himself with, you know, ensuring that all of these books and scrolls are covered. There's various like tarps that he, is affixing to various hooks in the deck in order to hold everything in place for movement. And looks like they would be designed to, protect in case of inclement weather as well. But he seems to have a whole routine that he's getting up to. And I think those of you with a naturally high passive insight would definitely get the impression that he is muttering to himself as he does it. And Nearlia actually just is standing at the prow, reading something, not even really paying attention to either you or to what Garush is doing. So do you all just kind of go and take a seat in the back there?
Yes, and I will
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sure our curious friends are also seated. Say, there'll be time, calm down.
But I can still make some of the titles out if I turn my head just that. Oh,
Just stay in your seat. Please keep all hands and feet inside the airship at all times.
But the
Make
books.
sure your tray tables and seat backs are in the upright and
That's,
locked position.
that's Marilyn, the stewardess.
Yeah, I don't think you have a Maryland.
I do not.
No.
Yeah.
You do now.
So as you watch, it doesn't take very long for Garouge to finish, putting everything, tucks various things away in little drawers and is strapping all of these tarps down over everything. They raise up the gangplank that leads down to the dock, and they seem to be very much going about their business as though they don't have, a quintet of strange adventurer passengers sitting in the back of their ship, very much acting as though this is all very ordinary. And so as they finish securing, Garouge just gives a whistle, just a quick whistle up to Nearlia, and they both head back towards your direction. Garouge passes by and goes to the door, like that goes down to the lower deck, and he just knocks on it hard, and you hear a voice from inside just say, "Fine!" And then you hear the engines start to spin up. So there are actually enough chairs for all of you except Garouge to sit. So all of you are already sitting. Nearlia takes the one remaining chair, leaving Garouge to kind of stand over him with his arms folded, kind of glowering down at the rest of you. And
I will get up and actually be like, you can sit here.
there's a moment where so Garouge's expression to you softens, Zaleen, but he doesn't move to take your place. And Nearlia says, "It would not be proper for the employee to take the seat of a guest."
I just feel bad for her because he's standing up while the rest of us are relaxing.
Your courtesy and manners are appreciated, but not required. And as this conversation is happening, you are kind of starting to slowly putter away the the dock here. And so I'm actually going to take us back away from the map because we're not really using it for anything tactically at the moment. But I did want to give everyone just a peek at the visual here of this
Ooh.
ship. As you are starting to very slowly move away from the dock and this platform and take on elevation as you get away out from the tiers of Skyport Tower, uh, Nerlia is not like speaking to you. He is just sitting there very sort of patiently and quietly, um, with kind of just, he's watching you, but does not seem to be expecting anything from you.
This I never even saw an airship before. This is really really neat. Um, what made you decide to do this? A book ship. That's a really cool idea.
Thank you. It is somewhat of a pun, if you did not pick that up. I find that I have to explain the name quite often. And behind him, Garush definitely rolls his eyes. But Nerlia continues. It is convenient to my interests to have a mobile platform to pursue my collection of rare books. But there are many books that I acquire in my travels that I do not need permanently, and so trade is often a useful way to obtain the books that I would prefer to hold in my own collection. As a result, I travel, and I find it a pleasing lifestyle.
What sort of books are you looking for?
He looks to you and just says, books that further my personal interests.
What are you interested in?
He he gives sort of like a lost in thought expression for a little while, and I think once again this is an example of something that perhaps Nedry wouldn't notice, but the rest of you are kind of getting an impression from Garush behind him that it's like this is not going to be a fruitful line of conversation. It's just kind of like nearly after sort of staring into the air for a moment, just says, I hope that it will not be taken as a sign of disrespect or lack of hospitality if I choose to keep some aspects of my profession and lifestyle private.
Oh, I can certainly respect that.
In return, I shall not inquire as to your needs or destinations beyond that which is necessary for me to provide you with a comfortable voyage.
We are very grateful for your hospitality.
And
So you have your own collection of books as well as those on display?
yes,
Would it be possible to see them?
no.
Oh,
Garouge, perhaps the guests would enjoy tea? And Garouge kind of stands there. Would you like tea?
What time is it about now? Because like we had all that stuff with the.
Yeah, it's evening. Like it's early evening. Like I think as you're preparing to head in a northern direction, the sun is starting to turn the sky orange and yellow to your left.
I'm still pretty worn out from everything. It's been a long few days. So I think actually I'd probably be okay with turning in early if it wouldn't be too much trouble.
Is it strong tea?
There are multiple varieties available. I would ask that you express your preferences to Garouge, and I will be retiring for the evening. If I am needed, I can be communicated with, but I would ask that you make your requests through Garouge. And
Fair enough.
and so he heads down through that door, and do so. I think he doesn't seem to like invite you to follow him as he's going down. He's not like leading you to your rooms or anything. He just goes down and closes the door behind him. And Garouge kind of stands there, waits for a little bit. And I think if you guys start looking impatient, he kind of holds up a hand. He's listening. Okay. So now I hope that you won't see it as too much of a sign of disrespect if I ask you, who the hell are you people and what are you doing here?
Oh, we just needed a ride. And I'll hand him a business card.
Oh, should we do that?
Carolina, don't do that. I know it's
Why?
instinct, but because, we don't want
Carolina, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great idea.
we don't want everybody to know who we are and where we're going. Like,
So he's standing there holding the business card while you have this conversation.
I'm really going to need some of that strong tea now.
Yeah, no tea for me, thanks.
It's fine.
oh,
Well, so,
I mean, these
As
are
she
people
said.
that travel a lot. You never know. They might need our services.
yeah, maybe, but what if,
So you explore pocket dimensions?
That's correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a lot of need for that?
you'd be surprised.
More than you'd think.
Seems to be a growing industry.
Well, gosh, I mean, that's okay. Assuming that you're not all total charlatans, that is actually pretty interesting. So, let me be clear here. I am Garouge. I am the apprentice of Nirlia. I do work here, but I don't always share my employer's every feeling about every subject. So I hope that I can provide you with whatever you need to feel that you can leave our ship as soon as possible without making my employer mad at me. So, with that in mind, what can I do for you?
Do you breathe fire? Or lightning or something?
Well, I actually breathe lightning, probably similar to
Oh,
your bronze friend here.
that's really neat. I'm studying how it works. I've only seen one example so far, and I've been tinkering with the spell.
Yeah, that's great. Can I do something for you?
I just
Well-
want to look at books.
I'm gonna need that tea.
Like,
If there's tea.
all right, well, so first, any books in particular, or just like some books?
I want to look at books about the Mistress of the Dark.
All right, I'm pretty sure that I've got one of those below. I can bring it back up with the tea in a few minutes. How about that?
Thank you.
All right, Now, we're still not out of the area where we're going to potentially have a little bit of rough air, so please don't disturb any of the things that have been secured up here on deck for right now. We can talk more about it later, but in the meantime, just don't touch anything. And he goes below deck.
Okay.
I think Nedry's kind of standing by the tarped over table, and he's like reaching, no, no.
Nedry.
Well, if I
think
can't
maybe
read any books, I'm going to need to write
pass,
something.
yeah, to pass the time, I would start telling them stories. And like, because the story of the heroes of legend is pretty long, like that could take hours.
I
And
know.
I don't actually know if Zaleen knows that story, so
I don't know that story. You keep asking me that, and I keep
Yeah.
saying no. I've never even heard.
At least
of
what's
these people.
relevant to the Gorn bits, right?
well, and she wanted to know about the Mistress of the Dark. So yeah, I would definitely like
Oh, yeah.
start like just distracting them a little bit as he is off fetching books or whatever to keep them from touching things. So I would tell them everything I knew about Gorn and like how it all started and how they, that's where the whole adventure kicked off.
So,
And then they were back there before.
so
Did you think about a pig?
I'm curious, actually, in the sense that given that what we're talking about is something where, like, everybody in the universe essentially got the Heroes of Legends version of it 100 years ago. But you are a bard 100 years later. I'm curious how your version that you tell right now might differ from the version that people heard in the original message.
And then they all rode unicorns and
That's actually true.
Well, that is actually true. Yeah.
Well, I also
I would
received the original message.
hmm So he
Oh,
could
yeah.
make any corrections that maybe I had. So I think how I would have heard the story, because of who I heard it from, Siona, trained in Emerald Arboris, so it would have had a lot of Ket influence on it.
So it would be super exaggerated and ridiculous.
And I think Siona doesn't seem like the overly colorful type. So I don't think it would be like super embellished. Like when she would have told it, she would have said, and I heard this, but because she would have been around to hear the actual story as well. She's a elf, so anyway.
I kind of imagine that every once in a while Nedry is interjecting.
But actually, Fort Hill's cross-reference on the compendium works of studying the heroes of legend said that, and he's got these bookish references to it. He doesn't understand the story. He doesn't know the whole story, but he's read like these highly acclaimed scholarly books on the event. They're probably wrong.
Like maybe someone who has what they believe to be an indisputable proof that the individual that they fled from when returning from Ushbithra back to the Shadowfell was in fact not the Lord of the Hunt, but one of his sort of disciples that was in disguise as him, and it's the only possible explanation because of these, everyone knows that the real Lord of the Hunt doesn't use blink dogs in the hunt, and
So one of the interesting things about Gorn is that there is a lot of contention about there was this drink that they used to serve. What was it? Appling, I believe it was called. So there's a lot of all of the different pubs and things around there. They all claim to have the original recipe for it. So I'm interested in trying some of them to see maybe which one I like best or what matches up most with the story.
Wait, they put the Mistress of the Dark inside a bottle?
It's theoretically possible, but highly unlikely.
Yeah, that doesn't seem legit.
I mean, the odds are astounding, but I mean, you never know.
It was a
This
magical
is
construct
yes.
bottle.
All
Hmm,
kinds of magic. So
Flask?
much magic.
that's crazy.
So everyone can make a perception check if you like.
Deception.
Hmm.
18.
21.
18.
14.
All right. So, Zaylene, I think that you are listening to this whole story, but nonetheless maintaining enough awareness of the sights and sounds around you that you hear what sounds probably like the footsteps of a dragonborn creaking back up some wooden stairs just to the other side of that door, but then waiting there for a little while the story continues before the door finally opens. But the rest of you see.
Ooh, we got a fan.
The rest of you see Garouge come back out. He has a tray with, a teapot and several teacups. I think he's brought 4 teacups, and he figures you guys can decide if you all want tea or not, or whatever. He sets that down on the table, and he says to you, Zaylene, I do have a book here on theories and history of known encounters with the Mistress of the Dark, but I think that it would be better if you didn't read it at the table where everyone's drinking tea. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to pull your chair out, we're still going to have natural light for another hour or so, I think. He's looking out at the sky. But I can produce a lantern for you if you need it. I think we're supposed to have clear weather pretty much through the night.
I probably won't need it.
Oh, well, yes, obviously. Sorry.
That's okay.
Although I will just say as a point of interest that dark vision is all in black and white and wouldn't necessarily let you read writing on a page.
I have dancing lights cantrip.
Well, there you go. That would work.
Yeah.
So he hands you a book, and he does just kind of as he's handing it to you. There is a little bit of a just be careful with it. You know, but yeah. So I think once we're a couple of hours underway, we will have taken on enough altitude that I can open up some of these secured areas if you all really want. I'm afraid we don't have bunks for 5 guests because it's usually just Nirlia and me and Kelvin who sleeps down in the engines. So I hope you can make yourselves comfortable up here on deck. We could probably make room for you below if absolutely necessary, like if it's bad weather or something. But otherwise, I would ask that you all stay up here. If you need me for anything right now, just, you just knock. But in the meantime, once I go to bed, I will give you a bell you can ring if you need anything, although I had a long day, so if you really didn't need anything overnight, that would be best for me, but I will do my best to give you whatever you need. Nirlia is going to be not available to you until the morning.
Okay.
Well, if you wanted to stay and hear some more stories, I'd be happy to entertain you, but I understand if you're tired.
He looks tempted. Are you trying to persuade him to say?
No, just making an offer.
Okay.
If not tonight, we'll be here tomorrow as well.
Yeah. We're going to be en route to Gorn probably through tomorrow, so there might be more opportunity for that tomorrow. I've got to, sleep off a day spent in Pashan and think about where my life is going right now, because this is more than I signed up for. All right, good night. Ring the bell if you need me.
Good night.
He goes back
Okay,
to
bye.
look.
Do we test ring the bell? No.
Hey, it works.
Who's this?
I pull my chair away from the table and sort of turn the back so that I can read, and I just start reading.
Okay.
I think I would probably find a quiet corner to curl up in because I only have like 18 hit points right now. I got to sleep off those spores still.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Mhm.
I can heal you.
Oh,
well,
well,
recall this
No,
was
it's-
something that needed
it's
a
the-
long rest to wear
yeah.
off.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
thought
also
that
the-
happened. The long rest happened the night before.
They had
No,
to do
we-
2, didn't?
Well, okay, so how it was is that you didn't know we were infected until the morning when we woke up and we were all terrible. Well, Nedry and I were terrible.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And then you cast,
So,
the restoration and then
You
we did
cured
the
the
whole-
disease,
Right.
but the initial night's effects were still in effect, still in place
Got
until
it.
they get
Okay.
another long
Yep.
rest.
Mm-hmm.
Are people taking the tea?
I mean,
I'm not.
I'm tired. That's the only
I'll try the tea.
I might get up every once in a while and take a sip and then go
Okay,
back.
so only 2 people are having the tea, which means Nedry will get 2 cups of the tea to have it with
oh,
him,
no.
and be drinking one and then drinking the other. He's going to sit cross-legged on the deck somewhere, probably where there's at least a little bit of light while it's waning, although it isn't needed later on, and just start writing madly in his book,
And when I
frustratedly, and then kind of crushing a page and tossing it aside and trying again.
notice that it's starting to get darker, I will send one of my little globules of light over to hover above Nedry.
Oh, thank you. I don't know
You're
that
welcome.
trick.
And he kind of gets distracted from what he's doing, studying the magic for a little while, trying to figure out how to do that.
Something Sequential hadn't done before. He had his rod, magical rod, using as a spell focus, and had carved some sigils on one side to make it the arcane firearm, which is part of the artificer stuff, and recently able to have 3 simultaneous infusions. So would add an infusion to that rod at the other end to make it an arcane rod. Basically just gives it a +1 to the normal spell modifier,
very nice.
which I think is technically an action, but I see it more, woodworker tools and more carving intricate runes and connecting little thing pieces to the other end. And
Hmm. What does this rod look like? I mean, is it kind of clockworky or?
yeah, I think it's really actually probably not. It's probably more utilitarian. Like maybe it had actually threads that it came out of something else, and now he'd like flatten the threading and replacing that with runes. So yeah, very rustic.
Nice. All right. So is anyone else getting up to business or just kind of settling in to try to see if you can get some sleep?
Oh, I would probably send one quick message to Lord Yobert just saying probably just something quick like bon voyage, like just a quick signal to let him know that we were gone. Safely away.
Nedry keeps going back to the pot of tea until it's
Okay.
empty.
Yeah. So Yobert
The osprey is in the nest.
reply similarly. Good luck. There is after about as the sun is setting, I want to ask each of you as is your character. We already heard from Zaleen on this, but have any of the rest of you ever ridden in an airship before?
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, probably not.
Nope. Nedry came on the lightning rail.
So the propellers that seem to drive this thing don't make a whole lot of noise. They have kind of a drone to them, and there's definitely kind of a pulsing deep sound coming from somewhere below decks that you would imagine is the engines that drive them. But overall, it's relatively quiet because it seems as though everything is kind of held magically buoyant through these big pontoons on either side of the ship, and then just the propellers are just for moving it forward. And you're getting pretty high. So, like, as you are leaving Pashan behind, it's this enormous city, and you're seeing it all laid out beneath you in a way even more dramatic than it would be from any point in the city. Even going up to the top of Skyport Tower, you can see quite a bit of the city, but now you're even seeing the tower itself being growing smaller and smaller beneath, and beginning to see the fields laid out below you in a way that probably, if you've never ridden an airship before, none of you would have ever seen the world from that point of view before. So how is everybody feeling about it?
I'm really looking forward to being able to see this view on my own at some point in time. And the thought of flying and getting up this high is electric to me. I really, really want to do more of that.
You just like up in the bow, kind of just looking out.
Do you have your wings out, feeling the air behind you as someone holds you in an embrace?
Yes, exactly. Nedry holds me up.
King of the plains,
I spread my wing.
Yeah.
You're getting heavy.
I think Carolina would be watching the sights and quietly strumming her lute, kind of in time with this, pulsing of the engines, and this hum would be in a certain key. So she would be trying to mimic kind of that beat and fill in the same key as the pitches of the machinery or the magic as it rumbles through the ship, and trying to capture a bit of the feeling of being there and flying and being so high, and the different perspective, just being so far above everything.
Yeah. So it was a hot, humid day, but certainly now that it's starting to turn to evening, the air is pretty calm, but it's also getting cooler and cooler as you rise in altitude. And there's not a whole lot of wind, but it's a calm flight so far, despite the warning you had previously gotten that there might be some rough air. I'm just adding additional flavor. I didn't want to cut anyone off if you had more of your stuff.
Zaylene actually feels a little sad as the city starts to disappear, and really overwhelmed because it's big. Everything is just so big and overwhelming to her. And she had just started to feel a little comfortable in this big city, and now they're above it and it's so very small, and it's daunting to her. So she doesn't linger very long, like looking out at the sights. She kind of just goes back to her chair and loses herself in the book again.
I think that Nedry's been writing furiously pretty much since he sat down, but every once in a while he'll just sort of half crumple up the page, turn it over, write another page down, get halfway through that page, turn it over, getting increasingly frustrated, and he kind of sits back, takes another sip of the tea, and just sees the city in the distance as it's starting. All the little lights are starting to get there, lit up and kind of outlining it. Kind of walk over a little absent-mindedly, not exactly walking too close to the edge, but he's sort of closer than he actually probably would have meant to get. kind of looking out over it, and there's a that look of kind of surprise and wonder.
Well, there
Just
certainly
that,
is railing that's probably taller than Nedry is, so
oh yeah,
you would have to stand on something to kind of look out over it, I would guess.
okay, yeah. Then he'll probably climb up a little bit just to kind of see once he gets a glimpse of it, but below the railing, and kind of climbs up to look over it. And there's a look of wonder and disappointment on his face as he looks out over the city that he's barely got to know a little bit. It was the big thing for him, and now he's leaving that. And after a few seconds of looking at that, and this sort of expression of bewilderment crosses his face, he'd taken a deep breath and let out a heavy sigh. His shoulders would slump ever so slightly, walk back to the book, and seem to write something which is very, very short. And at that point, stare at it intently, take another sip of the tea, pull out his amulet, put his pen to his forehead, and draw forth a silvery thread, silvery green thread, I think, that pulls out of the side of his head. And then once he's gotten it kind of poised on the end of his pen, opens up the bottle and puts it within. And the bottle glows its greenish glass glow for a little while, at least.
So, given that you, I think, in the castle have typically done that in a slightly more, private area, but here you're on a relatively small airship deck with all your friends. Does anyone else observe that?
The only one who's seen anything like this is actually Carolina, who had seen this before and had put the memory he had extracted before from the adversary into the bottle. So she might have some inkling of what that is about, but I don't think anybody else has actually specifically seen it.
So I would have just like tilted my head a little bit and been like, keep on strumming.
To a certain degree, he's kind of forgotten that anybody else is there. He's so lost in his own thoughts.
What about sequential?
Hmm. I think they would sort of similarly, not necessarily disappointment, but kind of acceptance that this quest of looking for Gregholm is perhaps even bigger than they thought it was initially. Seeing the expanse of land as far as the eye can see, and looking on one side and going over to the other side and just seeing things go on and just wondering where could he possibly have gotten to, and how it's immense how big the task is ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But resolve, it can be mapped out, can be thoroughly gone through. Still possible.
Yeah. Well, to be sure, as you are getting higher and higher in the sky, you're having spent a lot of time in the city. You're kind of used to the relative horizon being very close. There are things in every direction that are not that far away that represent the horizon of what you can see, but the higher up you get, the more the relative horizon is lower, and it feels more and more that you are completely enveloped in this vast space of the sky in a way that is really never, you can't ever perceive it quite that way from the ground. And as the sun starts to set, you're seeing the lights of the city, various types of both magical and firelight lighting up big parts of the city. And then you can look very far below you. You see a relatively fast-moving, very small light that you guess is probably a lightning rail train going below. But pretty soon you're leaving the city itself behind, and you would only sort of see it if you're looking back over the back of the ship, and it's dark enough that you really don't see a whole lot else, but there are many, many stars in the sky. Is everyone going to bed, or what else are you getting up to?
Probably as soon as it was dark, I was just out.
I think you may have been muted, Paul. I saw you trying to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
I am going to bed.
Okay.
As usual, Nedry continues to write and consume all the tea until he passes out in his book.
Okay. I think it is relatively strong tea.
Might be a little bit later than usual then.
Zaleen will read for a little bit longer, and then she's going to meditate.
So I think, Nedry, that at one, a little while longer, you do occasionally, before this happens, there are a few times where everything kind of lurches a little bit as the ship hits an air current of some kind, and nothing that would have ever, thrown you from your feet or anything, but certainly things that might have knocked things over on a table, for example. And after a little while, there is one more brief visit from Garouge, who says that he would be willing to take out one book from under the secured areas if you wanted something for overnight.
Oh, yes, I like that. Do you have any books about magic?
Well, that's kind of a broad subject.
Magical theory, then.
Sure. Let's see what I can find. Excuse me.
You should
just
get that checked out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, and it's dangerous when I cough too, because it can electrocute someone if I'm not careful.
It's pretty cool, actually. I've seen my friend use it.
He goes and he finds a book for you that seems to be, it seems to be kind of a treatise on the idea that their theory is that the known 8 schools of magic are not only the only schools that there ever could be, or rather, they are not only not the only schools that there ever could be, but that to consider them entirely separate from one another is also arbitrary and mistaken, which is not the conventional teaching, but they are making some interesting points, I think. And so that's kind of what that book is about that he gets for you. The book that you're reading, Zaleen, is primarily a history, but it's the sort of history that I'm spacing on the word, but it's the type where it's like testimonials. That's what it is. It seems to be someone has gone around talking to people who claim to have had various encounters with the Mistress of the Dark, and it's those kinds of entries. So the bridging text between these is certainly quick to point out that these are all presented as recorded by the individuals in question, and so there can't be any sort of establishment of how credible each person necessarily is or how honest they're being about what they say, but there is some attempt to put various encounters in context, like this event, when it occurred, would have been at the same time that this other event was happening, and that sort of thing. But what kind of information are you hoping to glean from these books?
Well, I mean, all she knows about the Mistress of the Dark has come from her own interactions, and that's who she is. So she really doesn't know anything about her at all.
Okay.
So she just wants to learn as much as she can to understand this entity that's been helping her to try to maybe understand why.
Yeah. So I think that as you're reading this, what you're reading is a lot of stories about um, people describing a sense of dread and fear associated with something that feels to them like the opposite of what they think of as life. And it just seems like the darkness of the grave and the end of all things, and that's the sort of imagery that a lot of people are using. And like the author of the book that collected these stories says in a lot of cases that it's possible this person actually just encountered a lesser denizen of the Shadowfell rather than the mistress of the dark herself, but a lot of that sort of thing. But I think what you find as you read more and more of these stories that kind of depict the Mistress of the Dark as this sort of goddess of death in a scary sort of, not exactly evil, but perhaps sinister way. Like, the difference between evil and opposed, if you follow me, right?
Mhm.
Like you can say in a football game that the other team is opposed to you without saying that they're evil, right? But it definitely feels very much like living things would find themselves opposed to the Mistress of the Dark because she represents this domain of death and darkness and all of these things that are thought of as in opposition to light and life and positivity, right? But what you find yourself feeling intuitively, like you're not entirely even sure these feelings are coming from your conscious mind, but you find yourselves reading these stories and just thinking to yourself, these people have it wrong. Like, it's not even about thinking that their story is not true as much as they are completely discounting the peace that can be found in the end of things, and the quiet, and the calm, and the rest that represents, an end to chaos. And that, to be sure, a lot of times, people think of the exciting times in their life as the highlights, but you find yourself thinking, even though you're not entirely sure where these thoughts or feelings come from, that some of the happier moments can actually be the quiet ones, where nothing is necessarily happening, but you're at peace. And that the Mistress of the Dark doesn't have to just represent like a death that comes too soon and robs you of the opportunity. It could also represent an end to suffering, an end to pain, an end to, chaos. It can represent a calm and an ending of things that gives what came before meaning rather than just the abrupt cessation of something that could have been more. And you just find yourself reading one interpretation of the Mistress of the Dark and nonetheless feeling intuitively that those people are misinterpreting their own experiences. It's almost a bit like you would imagine trying to explain to a small child who is scared of the dark, but the dark helps you sleep. You need your rest, and if we kept the lights on, you wouldn't be able to get your rest. The darkness is calming. It's soothing. It helps. Or it can, anyway. And whereas, the light can be painful, intense, it can force you to see things that are upsetting and force you to remember things that you might prefer to forget. So I think that as you're reading that book, you're definitely getting an impression of what people think in general about the Mistress of the Dark and the way she's talked about and taught. But you're also feeling within yourself a different understanding. And I'm not necessarily wanting to say put an opinion in your
Mhm.
character's head as much as you find yourself receiving thoughts that counter the narrative in the book.
Like it's sort of like a guided explanation, almost like both sides of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So, sequential, since you don't sleep either, do you pop yourself in front of something or other?
Yeah. Um, well, so yeah, normally the go-to is to work on Greg Holmes' journals encryption.
Okay. So one of the things that you guys had talked about, and I want to briefly, I guess, inquire about a little bit here too, is that you're certainly on your way, like, by way of Gorn, you're on your way to Emersham. But there had also been some discussion of trying to go back to, the workshop, which it was in the Barrier
Oh,
Mountains,
right.
right? Which is not that far from Emersham, but is not like the same place, right? It's not in Emersham. It is, it is near Emersham. So I don't know if that was still part of what you were thinking or not.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten.
Okay, well, I guess not then. That's fine. I just wanted to, wanted
Yeah.
to just probe like how much that was on your mind,
Mhm.
because certainly of the various bits of cipher that you've been studying, the ones that reference Emersham have been the journal that you found in the Reclaimer's Mansion, and less so
Right.
Greg Holmes' journal. So you're studying Greg Holmes though? Is that?
Right. No, yeah. No, since that's the task in front of us, probably would go back to that other document,
Okay,
that
well,
other
so
book.
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
good. I just wanted to
Yeah, yeah.
figure out what insights might come to you based on where where your head's at, so to speak,
hmm
right? So go ahead and as you're studying that, make an investigation check for me.
Ooh, 25.
Wow. Okay. I think that you actually make a big breakthrough in the study of this cipher. It just you discover that in this one particular symbol that gets used a lot of times, you had assumed must be like a common word, like that, you see this symbol over and over and over again, and you assumed that it must be some word that just gets used frequently, and maybe that means it's like a proper noun, or maybe it means that it's just a word like the that shows up all over the place. But you what it finally occurs to you is that it's actually more like a punctuation mark that represents a question being asked, and that totally gives you a new insight in terms of the structure of what you're seeing on these various pages. That a lot of these entries are structured as like a scientific paper that sets a hypothesis and then provides the evidence to either support or refute it. And so you discover that this symbol is like what highlights those hypotheses. Like and so it doesn't unlock everything about it, but it gives you a whole new perspective to work from. And you do manage, just in this particular session, to discover that at least one of the entries, like this, lets you, it basically, it's the key that lets you start to actually decode the cipher in here. Like, it takes time to actually do that, but
Mhm.
you know how to do it now, at least
Mhm.
for the version of it that's in this journal.
Mhm.
So the first entries that you are able to decode um, are talking about, the this particular dig site has been explored before, but by others. But there's a belief for the person writing the journal, that the early part, like the most accessible external parts of this particular dig site, may have actually been deliberately designed to give a mistaken impression about the true nature of the site.
Mhm.
And so perhaps someone went to a lot of trouble to have a significant site look like a different kind of significant site. And that seems to be, to confirm or deny that, seems to be the intent of this expedition that they're talking about.
Okay.
Uh, so, yeah, there's some. And further, you believe that the more you continue to study this journal, the more you will be able to decode of
Mhm.
those entries, now that you've kind of cracked that piece of it. It doesn't give you everything you need to do, Greg Holmes, because his was a
Right.
slightly more complex version, but it's big progress. Like it's, I think, probably the biggest breakthrough you've had since you started trying to decode them.
Nice.
Well, you're welcome. You're the one that rolled a 25. Thank yourself.
Yeah.
So I think those of you who don't sleep would certainly be aware when this happens. The three of you who would be asleep can choose to make a perception check if you think you would notice something happening quietly on deck overnight.
Quietly, no.
Okay. All right. So I think that it's a relatively calm night, and those of you, you might not be used to sleeping on an airship per se, but those of you who have had any experience just sleeping out of doors, like under the stars, it's not too cold, it's not too windy when you're down, kind of laying below the railing. So it's, you know, depends on, I'll leave it to you guys to decide how comfortable you would be in terms of sleeping in that way, getting your bedroll out on the wooden deck, for example. But at some point in the very early hours of the morning, like 2 or 3 a.m., you would guess, the door to the below decks opens, and a very small frogman with green slimy skin. Well, it looks like it might be slimy. Hard to say, but it has a little bit of a sheen to it. Um, that is, so this individual is maybe 3.5 feet tall, very sort of slight and slender in the build, bright green coloration with some black markings on it, big blinking black eyes, and wearing like just filthy, you know, rags, like very unpleasant looking clothing. It's not like dignified or at all. It's like it looks like someone who may well have been wearing that same outfit for years. And they come up through that doorway, stop briefly to blink at the assembled individuals on the deck, and then with a very nimble hop, just hops over the people, uh, sleeping, lands silently closer to the front, and then you see those of you who are kind of aware enough to just kind of glance over there, see he's carrying some kind of an enclosed container, and as he's standing by the railing, he opens it up and is clearly emptying an enormous ashtray over the side of the railing, and then he closes it again, hops back over, and goes back below deck without a word. So unless
Alright.
anyone interfered, that happens.
Yeah, none of my business.
No, I failed my perception roll.
Okay.
Saw on logs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we will then, I guess, clock wipe to the dawn arriving, and as you are currently starting to see light enter the sky once again, the sun is rising over the right as you travel, so which I believe is starboard is right, correct? Left is
Yes.
port, right is
Correct.
starboard. Yes.
Mhm.
So the starboard side then. But as you look down, you can see forest off to the kind of to the port side, but mostly you're traveling over green plains, and you can start to see ahead in the distance the sort of swampy and many small lakes of the area which surrounds Gorn. And those of you who know your history would understand is what used to be one big lake, but the heroes of legend broke up the spirit that once resided in that lake, um, and what resulted is the lake kind of spreading out and becoming much more of a marshy wetland area rather than just one big lake. And so you can kind of see that in the distance ahead of you, so you know that you are probably that's approximately where Gorn is going to be. And so you have a ways to go, but you're starting to be able to see it in the distance.
Can we see? I don't know how big Mount Rushama would be, but can we see it?
Oh yes, definitely. Like you have gone far enough that like you can, if you squint, see that's where Pashan is. Like it doesn't even really look like a city anymore, but you can kind of make out the part of the landscape before the forests behind it where the city is. But towering over, like you have gotten to the point where you don't really see the peaks around it. From Pashan, if your view is not obstructed, you can see not only Mount Rushama, but the mountain range that surrounds it below that. Mount Rushama is much taller, but the other mountains around it can still be seen. But you have traveled far enough that you can't really see any of those others, and you see less of Rushama than you are used to, but you do still see the peak above the rest, kind of peaking right at the horizon.
I just imagine Carolina just nattering on this whole story about like the portion of the story of the heroes of legend where they battled the spirit of Lake Elamond and the Coatoans and how the spirit just broke up into a bunch of different pieces and talking about all of this, and I'm sure Nedry has his own input onto like why that happened and but yeah, just like this is how Nedry normally talks, and she's just like going. She's so excited right now.
Nedry's probably bleary eyed and sort of half awake, kind of looking over.
I thought it would be bigger.
Dinhorn is in quiet contemplation of the mountain itself.
So as the sun, fully rises, Nirlia, the Githzerai, once again returns to the main deck and looks out to all of you. Are you kind of like putting your bedrolls and stuff away, or what are you guys up to as the dawn has arrived? Or might still be sleeping for all I know. I'm just saying.
Well, went to bed pretty early, so yeah.
Yeah.
Sun's up, so is Lynn. Just and there's Gorn and there's the swamp the whole time.
Yeah,
Nedry's probably
probably.
just wiping the drool off the page that he was sleeping on and closes the book, hangs it on his belt.
By
So
looking over the landscape with Lynn, listen, trying to spot all the things she's pointing out.
Nearlia comes and he looks over at you and says, Garouge is pursuing his morning studies, and so if you are in need of anything, I may be able to provide such.
What is Guru studying? I didn't realize he was studying.
He is studying the art of book preservation.
Oh. Well, that's a very important art.
I concur. That is why, of course, I took on an apprentice. I believe that this is knowledge which will benefit the world in the future, so long as it, like the books themselves, is preserved.
So does that mean that when you buy a book, it leaves you better than when you found it?
I believe that is frequently the case, though of course that would be dependent on both the book and the individual in question.
Neat.
I hope that you are all able to sleep comfortably. I regret to inform you that we are somewhat behind schedule. I am told by our mechanic that the engines are not working at their full efficiency, though he is hard at work, he assures me, in repairing any necessary faults that might slow us in our progress. But I still anticipate that we will arrive in Gorn sometime after sunset today.
Excellent. I'm fairly handy with machines if he needs any assistance.
I suspect that your offer, though well intentioned, would be declined, as Kelvin is very possessive of the engines of this ship and takes his work extremely seriously. To hear him tell it, anyone else would just mess it up.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Been there.
I was
But-
wondering,
Yes?
did you have any books on music, perhaps old songs?
I believe that I do have a volume or two. Are you looking for songs from a particular plane?
This one actually.
More easily obtained here in this plane, of course. I do not have said volume in the display above here, but I could retrieve it for you. I hope that Garouge did explain to you that although I am certainly pleased to allow you access to the books during the duration of your stay, your agreement does not include permanent acquisition of any of my volumes.
Oh, of course not. I would never assume as much.
Then all is well. We have some food supplies that were primarily intended for myself, Garouge, and Kelvin, though there is enough to last until we arrive at Gorn. I do not know how each of you take your breakfast, but we have available to us breads, cheeses, meats.
Yes.
I imagine Brennan would have prepared some like packed lunches or so,
Yeah.
something for us. So that is very generous, but I think I've brought what I need.
Very well. I shall retrieve the book in question. Do you have any other requests for me?
A list of them. But if you have any books specifically that have magical incantations in them, spell books, basically.
I do have a small selection.
Oh,
Would you also be in need of the transcribing materials?
well, I have ink, if that's what you mean, and my pen and book.
So yeah, I mean, like the things that the like the paper and inks and all that. So if you have,
Yeah.
I think our original assumption was that those. Oh, or did you buy it at Sticky Zicky's? I was trying to remember because I think that the libraries like do sell that stuff. So we might have been assuming that, but if you have it, then that's fine too.
He did buy a bunch of it when we were
Oh,
at
that's
Sticky
right.
Zicky's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
He-
have it then. Okay. So,
Yeah.
very good then. Very good. If you have specific requests, I can see what I am able to accommodate.
Wow, I didn't know there would be choices. Magics. Well, I feel like I should ask about protective magics, but maybe magics dealing with farseeing, divination is the school.
Well, so briefly, I don't have ready to hand the same list that you were going to try to get from the library. But if you want to resend that to me, I can tell you which ones. He's got.
Yeah. That's another way to do it. Yes. They were all over the place. I don't remember which ones I'd actually decided upon because I made several lists,
Sure.
as you can well imagine. I think I made them in more than one book too. Oh, I know. Yes.
So where are you putting it in the Discord?
right back.
I can put it in the Discord. Yes.
Okay. Well, so he's going to have some probably, but not all of those, I would say. So I can get you a couple of those and we can say that you get started on a few of those maybe.
Okay.
All right. So what else is anyone else getting up to? Any particular business, or are you just kind of gonna enjoy the journey, watching the fields and forests go by beneath you?
I will return the book
Okay.
that I read to him and ask him if he has any books about the undead.
The undead. Okay. He says, I believe that I may have some treatise on the school of necromancy, which is not quite the same as all undead. And I have several monster atlases that do describe the undead. Which of those would be your preference?
Necromancy.
Okay. All right. So he is able to get you a book that is, it's a relatively basic book, but it does talk about like the theories of necromancy, and it is, I would say, to your eye, the author is very defensive about people thinking that necromancy is just about raising dead bodies. Because, yes, of course, you can do that with necromancy, but that's not all necromancy can do, and nobody seems to know that. And so that, there's an attitude that you can pick up between the lines in this book of, like, necromancy can actually do lots of things. It's not just about making skeletons dance and stuff. Although you can do that, and it is cool. But
It also sucks the life out of people. Come on.
yeah. Okay, I think looking at this list, that you find that he does, in fact, have books that you could copy floating disk, web, and sea invisibility. So he can make those available.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, these are old.
Yeah. So certainly the floating disk one, like it's not got a coating of dust on it, because you get the impression that he takes better care of his books than that. But there is like you definitely get a sense as you open it, like this is a book that doesn't have its spine creased very often. So you're all kind of just getting up to your own bits of business over the course of the morning. A few hours go by. And after a certain point, you all sort of realize through the change in the ambient sound around you that the propellers kind of stop being driven by the engines and sort of slowly start to kind of spin down. And the wind around you kind of begins to die down a little bit as your forward momentum is kind of coasting to a stop.
I'm gonna start looking around and seeing if there's any other air traffic in the air around us.
Okay. Go ahead and make a perception check.
Hopefully it'll be better than the last one. That will be a dirty 20.
Okay. There, you don't see any other airships or any flying creatures, but you do see in the distance ahead, there is what appears to be a thunderstorm, although to your eye, it's a slightly kind of greenish tinge to it. Of a type that you know can certainly happen naturally, but often would indicate some kind of um, a larger weather pattern than just a thunderstorm happening. You know, something could be kicking up a lot of dust or something into the air, but the clouds seem to have a little bit of a like yellow greenish tinge to them. This storm that you see in the skies ahead.
Okay, it's Garouche or yeah, I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, I know. Nirlia.
There we go.
I did that Yeah. I would say that Garouge had at some point mid morning come back, up to top just to kind of, he is clearly doing his own sort of studying at the table, but there's also a little bit of he's keeping an eye on you sort of vibe to it. But he kind of reacts when the propellers stop. He looks confused, and then he goes down below deck when that happens.
Okay, I'm gonna follow him.
Okay. There's a little bit of he kind of turns to you and says, I'll tell you what's going on in just a moment, if you
Okay.
don't mind just waiting up above.
Okay, I go back up above.
So you do, I think, hear some muffled conversation happening below. It's especially now that the engine doesn't seem to be pulsing in the same way. But eventually, Nirlia does come back up with Garouge, and Nirlia says, "It would appear that there is an unusual weather formation in our most direct path. It is my general practice to avoid such weather patterns, as this ship, while capable in many respects, is not optimized for travel during severe weather. However, I understand that this will impact your timeline, so I wished to inform you as soon as possible that it may be that it will add several hours to our timeline.
Shouldn't be a problem. Safe,
Yeah.
better safe.
We're not
Yeah.
really in a hurry, so
Yeah,
mean-
I'm much more worried about arriving safely.
He nods to that and says, "We will do our best to avoid the weather and ensure that your trip is comfortable and safe, if not prompt. My apologies for the delay." He gives you kind of a it's not a bow, but it seems slightly more formal than a regular nod. Whatever that means. It's sort of like a half bow sort of thing, just kind of a that sort of thing. And but what happens as he goes back down? You know, eventually the engine does start spinning back up again, but there is a lot of various like something's happening with the pressure of the two pontoons, and you're feeling the airship sort of tilt side to side, wobble a little bit here and there, and then the propellers do finally start spinning up again. But it's clear that you're starting to sort of turn, to veer out over the more over the marshland area, which is kind of to the east of Gorn and off the original, route you had.
Mhm.
But I think as this is happening, and over the next few minutes, I would imagine you're all kind of paying attention, right, at this point. And I think you can all make a nature check, if you like. Or survival. Survival would be okay, I guess.
Oh, yeah, survival would be way better.
17 nature.
I got an 18 nature check. So
and
I had 16 nature, weirdly.
All right.
And
I think like those when you stopped for a moment and you were like looking down around and everything, you got a pretty good sense of like what the current prevailing winds are in this area, and mostly they're actually more or less in your favor, blowing you in the direction you were trying to go originally, to Gorn. But what you realize is, as you're watching up front, is that storm does not seem to be moving with the prevailing winds. It in fact does seem to be moving more in your direction than not, despite the fact that the wind should be making it go the other way.
oh, that's not good.
that doesn't seem right.
Got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
Did we? I don't. Did we bring the pop-up book with us? I'm trying to
Yes.
remember. We
Yeah.
did?
Mm-hmm.
And that was also in Zalene's bag, correct?
yes, along with the cards, the password bag.
Oh, the password is Poppin' Jays.
Okay,
That's a
I'm
good
writing that down.
one. So,
I
oh, go ahead.
in advance of that, just in case, I would try to round up any like rope that we might have laying around.
Well, by that, do you mean in your packs, or rope that's like on the deck, or what do you mean when lying around?
Didn't we have some kind of rope that was like really, really long? Like we couldn't. I'm remembering something. About
Yeah,
this.
Sequential has essentially a device that would dispense infinite rope, as far as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking in case of bad weather, it might be prudent to tie ourselves to the ship in some manner,
Didn't
or like enough to make it like easy. Like if we need to jump ship, then we can do that. But you know,
Yeah, that seems
that
like
that,
a
that
really
weather
good
has
idea.
me nervous.
Do you think it's
Rope
some sort
seems
of
like it might be
creature
useful.
or a magical effect? It's pretty big. That would be quite an impressive magical effect.
So
Wow.
are any of is Garush or Nilia, are they up
Um,
there?
No, they're all below decks, but you're definitely hearing like muffled conversation.
Okay. So, well, remember that whole like weird thing that happened when we read the book?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be connected,
Oh,
can it?
you think? Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
I was wondering who could be powerful enough to make a storm.
Maybe somebody or something is, you know, tracking us or
That's what I'm
something.
worried about.
So we could be putting this ship in danger, or
Not the
I don't
books.
know.
We've got to protect this ship.
yes, we do with our lives. The flying library, the only library we'll ever get to visit.
Well, as I can't fly, I would like the ship to stay in the air.
I wonder
Would
how
be
high up we
ideal.
are anyway.
So here's the question: is how well do you think you would be able to estimate that?
Without a test, probably not much at all.
Yeah, I
It's-
was just gonna say, like looking out over the railing seems real high.
That is hard, Nedry.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a spell that I've prepared for
I mean, we have
this
that coin.
I
situation
mean,
just
if
in
we
case.
fell and we got hurt, that's too high.
That's
Yeah,
all we need to
I think
know.
from this height, if we fell, we would die. So
I could stop
It's
this
bad.
from falling if we fell.
We have a
I've got something
featherfall.
similar.
Don't we have a featherfall thing that we got at Sticky Zickies? It was like
That's-
one little thing that we got, or was that something else?
Is there one thing? Well, there was a coin delving.
Oh, that
coin
was
thing.
the
yeah,
That'll
that
tell
was
you how
the
deep
light
something
coin.
is. Throw it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he already used it, didn't he?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Featherfall. I did study Featherfall to since we were going to be in the air.
What I will say also, as far as Nedry's transcribing goes, assuming that you kind of got right to work on that, I'll go ahead and say that you got to do 6 hours worth, whatever that gets you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's 2 of the spells. All right. I don't have them prepared for today anyway, but
Yeah,
it's-
but I felt like it was only fair to let you know how much time you would have been able to do that if you were.
Maybe
No,
not going
I
to be able to
appreciate
do it anymore.
that's right.
You know, there was a part of me that was tempted to let you guys pick the library airship and then still not give you any opportunity to actually read it.
Be a running gag for
The
some reason.
irony.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, but at the same time, of course, the price you're paying really is that you're actually going in the wrong direction. You're not actually heading to where you're trying to go right now. But in any case, though, that's so you have been up for a little while. You've had time to do, some hanging out or talking around before all this is going on. But after a little bit, where you're definitely watching this storm with a concerned eye, you're hearing some conversation down below. Garouge comes back up and says, if you don't mind, I would ask everyone to please return whatever books you currently have borrowed. I'm going to be resecuring everything, and it might be safest if you would come below decks. It looks like we're not going to be able to avoid that storm.
Is it the sort of storm you face a lot?
No. I don't know how to elaborate beyond saying that it's definitely not, and I'm not sure what's its deal.
It does not feel natural.
No,
If there's any way we can
but,
help.
it seems to be following us and not being pushed by the wind.
Well, our engineer says that it does seem to be moving against the prevailing winds, but it's less about it moving towards us in general as much as it's moving in the direction that, I mean, it's moving. Okay, I feel like I need to clarify what you mean. Do you have some reason to believe that that storm is actually like not just moving in the direction where we happen to be, but like coming after us?
That's what I'm worried about, but I have no reason to believe that that's what's happening.
Okay, well, I just like that would be
We're not
good to know,
expecting a
right?
storm or anything. No, we're not.
Okay, all
We're
right,
not
well.
expecting company.
Well, so I think, yeah, we're probably, right now they're downstairs, trying to decide whether they think it would be, they would be able to land safely rather than try to fly through it. But it's coming on us pretty fast.
Well, let's make sure these books are safe.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do that right now if you guys are done asking me questions.
Absolutely. I'll hand him back the book they borrowed.
Same.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
Nedry
didn't,
set the book on the desk.
I
and-
didn't
and kind of-
give you your old songs, Carolina. I was about to call you Nira.
I felt that.
You felt me pause?
Who? Who?
All this for Shama talk.
Yeah. I think you find another verse of the song.
Yay!
And in fact, I think what you find, which is interesting, is you find something that purports to be the whole song, but does not actually include the verses you've seen before, but it's the same chorus.
Interesting.
Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Can you? Because I put all of the. This is a bad question for a DM to have to ask. Which verses did I give you already?
You gave me one verse.
Yeah.
And
so,
that was, it started with spirits, wisdom pure. That one.
Okay. So the verse that you get, that this book has, the verse is, remnants face the sea, haunting their temple and prison. Words unsaid, lives unled. Protectors for the unknowing.
Okay.
And this book says it's about a now died out order of paladins, is what this book says it's about.
Interesting.
It doesn't seem to make any reference to Dinethera in terms of like its commentary on what this song is. But yeah, so that's what you found in that book. But yes, as Garouge is securing all of these books, strapping everything down, he's also taking some of them and carrying them in armfuls, like down below decks, the ones that can't be quite as thoroughly secured. But he seems to be busying himself with that pretty, hurriedly. And as those of you who are looking out at the storm, like the storm is moving pretty fast, and the ship does actually, like the propellers have stopped going quite so fast, but you do seem now, and you kind of sense it in the inner ear, that you are like descending. You're still moving forward a little bit, but you're on a downward trajectory. But it's not too steep right now.
Nedry's desperately trying to help Garouge, and there's a slightly different attitude from before, a little more respectful attitude. He wasn't disrespectful, but now it's sort of like, you preserve books, you're important.
Oh, yeah. So how about this? I'm going to go ahead and introduce this now. That this is something I don't often do when I run D&D, but I'm going to run this next sequence as a skill challenge. And what that means for anyone who's not really familiar with this term de l'art in D&D is basically we're going to have you have to do whatever you need to do. And we're not really in proper initiative. We're not really taking combat turns. But you're going to be making rolls based on your skills in order to help in the situation, right? And so it's not going to be quite like who's going to grab and pull this rope? It's more going to be like, we're in a dangerous situation here. What are you doing to help? We figure out what skill that is. And then you're trying to beat a pre-existing DC. And one of the quirks to a skills challenge is once someone has used a skill for their turn, no one else can use that skill again for the challenge. And what we're going to be looking for here is we're going to be looking for 5 successes before you get 4 failures.
Oh,
All right.
Cool.
So, because it's where we began, let's start with Nedry. You wanted to help Garouge start to secure the books. What skill would you like to use in your assistance there?
Oh boy. Yeah. Let's say what would naturally fit for that. How about sleight of hand, I guess?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you're tying down knots and securing things in a way that keeps everything moving properly. All right. So let's go ahead and get that sleight of hand roll.
Oh, 21.
Oh, nice. That is definitely a success. So,
Deft little hands.
yeah. So as Nedry is ably helping Garouge with securing those books for the moment, he is impressed that you seem to know how to do it, and you're able to anticipate what he needs in a way that you're not just in his way. So you get kind of a nod of gratitude as that's proceeding.
Kind of just tap the books that are permanently strapped to his hips.
I know a thing about tying some books down.
Yeah. So all of you are definitely feeling a noticeable sort of tilt now that the deck of the ship is at a slight angle as you're descending, but you have a ways to go. You're still pretty high, and that storm does seem like it's coming on pretty quick. So what are the rest of you doing?
Staying calm. Really
I
high
can
up.
offer. First thing that popped in my head is to offer my perception.
Okay.
If we're looking to dodge down below it, then I guess I think of it as trying to pick out a path or a safe landing spot.
Oh, like a safe landing spot. Okay, like that's something you could be
Like
looking
we need a
for.
goal.
Like, so the perception would involve trying to gauge the capabilities of the ship, like where it could get to and what
Right.
would be
Like-
perhaps a safe place.
Calculating a glide slope and
Right. Or for that matter, let's have you do a roll and we'll see what you get.
ooh, 16 plus 4, 20.
Oh. Plus 420? Oh, okay.
Oh, 20
16 plus
equaling
4
20.
equaling 20. All right. Well, you'd forgive me if I
That reduces
made a
perception.
different guess first. Yeah. So that is another success. So
Yay.
you definitely learn a couple of things. One is that although there are potentially places that could be reasonably safe landing, this is still a success that you understand this. This storm is going to get to you before you'll be able to land. And so that's not to say that you can't still try to land, but that you will be dealing with the storm before you'll be able to get down. So there's no avoiding the storm entirely, and so you know that.
Sure.
So I don't know if you yell that out or anything.
Yeah. We're not gonna make it.
I was
Okay.
assuming that you'd yell something more helpful, but okay. We're all gonna die.
Game over, man.
I'm helping.
Yeah.
No,
Wrong
I,
subroutines
it
are
would be
going to try
more,
something else.
Oh, the glide
Try
path
something-
and the oncoming and the da-da-da-da-da. We're gonna have to deal with it before we can make land.
Yeah. Okay. So, so as sequential is kind of like pointing out possible landing points, but saying the storm's going to be on us any minute. I guess I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're saying whatever
but
you
yeah,
say.
there's the good spot, but I think it's gonna be on us too quick.
Okay. Well, what about the rest of you? The storm is coming on really quick. Like it's obvious that it's moving very fast now.
I am going to persuade people to get below decks because this is like it's coming fast. So I am going to say we need to get downstairs now. We can't stay out here on the deck.
Like potentially at the cost of books that are not fully secured yet.
What are we looking at for like What does that look like?
A lot of it has been secured in the way that they would secure for normal storms. You don't necessarily know what's involved here.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can persuade him to get below decks because
Okay.
yeah, better to save your life than the books. I'm sorry,
Alright.
Nedry.
I roll with
Fly, you
advantage against
fools.
that.
Well, go ahead and make your roll.
That's a 28.
Holy Lord.
Yeah. So that certainly another. You guys are doing really well so far. I'm going to need to set the DC higher for the next time I do this. But yeah, so I think you're yelling that out, and Garouge kind of like looks up from what he's doing and looks up and sees this storm is like it's very obvious now that this is not a natural storm. It is coming on you way too fast. And you can see that the everything's starting also to kind of like vibrate a little bit, and you can see just these roiling like wave of like weirdly greenish clouds just like tumbling towards you almost like an avalanche. And so as you're yelling that out, he kind of looks up and sees that, and like he doesn't go pale because he's dragonborn, but he kind of just looks up at it and goes, I think you're right. So, okay, everyone below deck, everyone. Yeah. So, are you all kind of bundling down below deck?
Yep.
None
Yeah.
of you had really been very far down here yet, because what you find is that there's actually there's kind of one of those very steep stairways. It's like half ladder, half stairs. That is immediately through that doorway, and you can actually go down 2 levels there. But there's sort of like, it's not a trap door completely obstructing the next level down, but it's something you would have to lift up to keep going down. But it's kind of so you can stand on something to go at the first level.
Like
and that's,
a braiding.
well, it's more like just a crossbar.
Okay.
So like you would go down the ladder and stand on that crossbar and then go off onto the first level, or you could bend down and lift it up to descend further to the second level. You hear that the engine noise seems to be louder from that next level down. But if you get off at that first level, which is what Garouge does, there's basically kind of a narrow, cramped corridor that has two, a door on either side and a bigger door at the far end of it. And he kind of he goes down almost to that door at the end of it, but he's clearly just watching to see that the rest of you are coming all the way down. and he yells to Nerelia, "We're all coming below decks. It's not safe up there." Who's next?
Before I follow the rest of everybody down, I actually want to make an Arcana check to see if I can learn anything about the storm.
Okay. Okay. Arcana. Go ahead.
Ooh.
24. Natural
Okay.
20. So
Yeah. Okay, so that's 4 successes and no failures so far. I'm going to, yeah, okay, you guys you're doing what you need to do. So, all right, so as you make this Arcana check with, with a natural 20 in particular, looking at this storm, you have kind of an uncanny insight here, because you're definitely looking, and it's what you're seeing in this storm is not like a conjured or evoked magical storm, like a control weather type spell, but what it really seems like is happening is that the storm itself is somehow not moving, but the place where the storm is moving. There's a strange sort of ripple around like the boundary of it. And you can see like now that it's closer, like the stuff that's happening in the storm does not seem to be what is moving towards you so quickly. It's almost like if someone had a storm encased in a bubble and then the bubble was moving. And so you are definitely realizing that this storm is a storm in another place. But somehow a boundary between the material plane and where that storm is what's actually moving.
Need one of those hat pins again.
right?
Well, that depends on whether that's what you want to have happen. Do you want to pop that bubble? But yeah, so you definitely realize that with your Arcana check.
Okay, and then I will slide down the ladder and I will tell everybody else what I
Okay.
learned.
Okay. I think you explain that, and Garouge is the only one that's there in the hallway with you still, but he just kind of blinks, like that meme, the guy blinking, just. What?
Remember what I said about that whole pocket protectors thing being, of more use than, you'd think? Stuff like this.
That's kind of suspiciously coincidental timing.
You would think that,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
All right.
Everywhere we go.
So, who's next?
That would be me.
Yeah. So, what skill would you like to use to contribute to this situation ending in a positive way for you?
I would like to use insight
Okay.
to look around the yards, like
I'm going to have to push back on that a little bit because it's not obvious. Yeah, I mean, you're in a narrow, cramped ship's corridor. Like, what do you think you would? I mean, I'm
I'm looking for place to tie ropes to, so that I can build some kind of kind of safety webbing with the rope. If we get thrown around, we're not going to get dashed all over the place. We'll have something to hang on to.
I think it's cramped enough in here, right? Like it's not a wide open hallway. So, I mean, like right now, if you go like this, you can put your hands on both walls, right? There's not really anything to tie yourself to. So sorry, I know I didn't really push back on anyone else, but I think at least where you are right now. Now, if we want, you can try to we can narrate the story a little bit further forward to try to get to where an insight roll would make sense. But right now, I think like there's nothing to tie anything to. You're in a very
Okay.
small corridor right now.
All right. Then let's narrate forward.
Okay, so what are you doing?
Are we gonna? I turn to. I can't think of the guy's name.
Well, Garouge is the one that's there in
Garouge,
the corridor
yeah.
with you still.
And are we staying in the corridor for the storm, or do we need to move into a room, or what?
He says, "Well, I mean, I you know, I have my bunk, but we've never had to do this before. And as he is starting to look a little wild-eyed, you hear sort of a voice coming from, you know, the next level down, and just you see just the top of this little frog-like head kind of sticking up above that level, and said, "Get in the rooms."
Okay. Which room?
I don't
So,
think it
okay,
matters.
so yeah, there's
I'm gonna open a door and go
okay.
through to a room.
All right, so roll a d20. This is not for the skill check. This is just to see which door you got.
I'm glad I got the one out of the way.
Well, lucky you. Yeah. So the door that you open is reveals a whole bunch of like densely, you know, packed books that are like they're in shelves, but they're also like it's kind of like stacks, you know, in a fancy library. So there's a number of shelves, so it's very densely packed. There's only enough room for like one aisle through it, but some of those shelves can be slid across. So that's the room in there. And so there is, if you go in there, there is that one aisle that all of you, you know, could kind of slide in and fit sort of packed in like sardines. But that's about all the room in that room there is.
Okay.
Ooh, books.
Books in everyone.
Yeah. All right. So all of you kind of pile in there and kind of,
Yeah.
you know,
Scramble.
create your own little
Yep.
sort of area in there. So go ahead and I mean, I'm still thinking insight doesn't really feel applicable here.
Maybe
Yeah.
you should make a religion check and pray to Roshana.
I would allow that. Yeah. I
I'm
mean, because
thinking.
Rushama is a god of the storm, or you know, a spirit of the storm. Like that's one of Rushama's domains.
Okay, I'm gonna pray to Rashama for protection.
Okay. Let's get a religion check.
18.
Okay, yes, you guys got 5 successes before even a single failure.
Yes.
So I think
We
that,
won.
yeah.
Yay, proficiencies.
Well, what it is inexperience in a DM not knowing what DC to use for a skill challenge in order to make it more stressful than that.
Sure.
But now you
Good
guys are
rolls in
not
there,
out
though.
of this situation, but it just means that the more dire outcomes have been avoided. So you guys are able to secure yourselves in there. You have gotten everybody else to come below deck, where you know there's less risk of anyone being thrown off the railing, and you have prayed to Rashama for, you know, assistance, deliverance, protection in this. But what I'm still going to say is the next few minutes for all of you are pretty unpleasant. The ship is rocked back and forth, shaken, vibrated. It's very rough. And in fact, I think let's go ahead and get a Constitution saving throw from everybody.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 6.
Well, Luckily for sequential, I think you're not
3.
okay.
This is where all the failures come out.
Five.
Yeah. Okay.
9.
6.
There
Yeah.
are no sea legs.
All right. Okay. So here is the what's the opposite of a silver lining? When,
The train at the end of the tunnel.
I mean, the dark cloud is
yeah,
the opposite,
so
right?
what happens is that you have all managed through your assistance to, with this ship, to ride through this crazy, strange storm without crashing or losing anyone over the side. But what you do have is several of you barfing on the books in a contained space.
Not
you have to
We all
say-
have
not the-
concussions. Books
Suffering
flying
internal
everywhere.
injuries from the bread gun.
Well, no,
Quick, prestidigitation.
yeah. Well, yeah, that might be might be coming. So I think sequential doesn't barf, probably.
Mhm.
Unless it's
Yeah.
that mouth thing he's wearing. That would be really embarrassing.
The
Start
stomach
expelling- yeah.
just
Start losing
disgorges
items
everything.
out of the endless stomach.
Yeah.
Barfed up a couch. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. No, sure. Why not? What have you got in the endless stomach right now?
Well, we've got that big blue pill and the automaton seeds and a spider bot, a dead spider bot.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That's about it.
So
Didn't you eat some food just to see if it would go in there because you didn't usually eat?
That's true. Yeah.
So I think that, what I will say is that, as promised, you guys succeeded in the skill challenge and therefore are surviving this with relatively easy to fix, no lasting damage, except perhaps to just your own sense of emotional trauma from having to be packed in with all your friends in a very narrow space, in a contained area, shaking like you're in a paint can mixer, and then several of you throwing up all over the books that are in there with you.
I have this weird sense of us. It's like we're being stuck into a phone booth, and it's like we're getting jumbled around, shaking around. We're kind of pushing up, and then suddenly some large thing just emerges from Sequential's mouth, making us all push to the edge of the
It's the bread gun going off.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that actually, you know what? That's actually amazing. So what I'm going to actually suggest that happens here is all of this has been like shaking and you're knocking back and forth, and it's like the smell is not great and you're all feeling really sick and it's just really unpleasant and you don't know what's happening outside and oh my God. But then gradually it starts to calm down just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, all of the empty space in the room is filled with bread. Like the delayed response of an airbag.
Internal
Not
bread injuries.
now.
So basically, you are able, as things calm down, to extract yourselves. And although it was not a pleasant ride, several of you do have prestidigitation, no permanent damage to any of the books, although it probably takes a while to clean up. But I think as things get calm again, you eventually emerge back up onto the main deck. And the first thing you notice is everything, like every surface up there, is covered with a thin layer of some weird kind of slime, like a thin, transparent, translucent, like almost mucus-like texture.
Like ectoplasm?
Or perhaps, yeah.
Mhm.
But you didn't ever quite get all the way to the ground, but you can now look up and back and see that this storm system that you kind of passed through is in fact continuing on its way, moving in the direction of Pashan.
Hmm.
And
Well, that sort of solves one question.
Yeah, good
Kind
news.
of, but also not.
It wasn't exactly after us.
Are you sure about that?
It didn't stop.
Maybe it was going to where it thought we were.
I'm sure it's not our fault.
What are the odds it has anything to do with us?
I
It would
think
be really.
I think Garouge, when you say that, Garouge says, "I think I'd like to know that too."
It would be really, really egotistical for us to think this had anything to do with us.
Right? It's a big universe,
Yeah.
Yep.
multiverse.
Can
I
we
wanna
get
study
the
this
We could
gray
just keep
slime
going,
cleaned
you know?
off?
I want to
Huh?
study some of this gray slime.
Yeah.
Well, I think those investigations and cleanings will need to wait until next week, because it is that's about all we can handle, I think, for this week. But our adventurers will continue to figure out what's going on around them, and perhaps maybe actually reach their destination. But we'll have to find out next time when we return for more adventure on so many levels.
So many
many
levels.
levels.
Oh,